Welcome back to Built for Profit. Guys, I am fired up to have Dr. Daniel with me here today. We're talking all things about his business, brain-based chiro. Can't wait to dive into that. He's calling in from California. It's just a small world. So, Dr. Daniel, number one, welcome to the podcast. And number two, if you just want to kick us off by just saying who is Daniel and how did you even get to in the chiro space to begin with?
Yeah, dude, that's great. So first, Austin, just one, thanks for the time of having me here. I love, we think so much the same. It's like, I just love having these conversations, and it's just cool how God orchestrates it. And I'm excited for you, man. And like, just kind of being new to the podcast game and going all in with it. So
let's go.
Honored to be here. Number one, just so grateful and appreciative of you. So got to lift you up and give you the praise as well. So,
appreciate it.
Grateful to be here. So my story is kind of wild, dude. I'll go back. So I used to be, let me start growing up. I'll just give you kind of a quick rundown of how I got to where I am today. Brain-based chiro, because most people have no idea what that means.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid growing up, I lived in like a very traditional household. Parents gave me medicine every time I had a stuffy nose. But I always in the back of my head, even in like high school, and I was a big time partier. So this is not like I was a goody goody kid by any means. I had this belief that the body knew how to heal itself. But I had no foundation for it because nobody ever talked about it. They're like, if you're sick, you take medication. And it doesn't matter where you stand on that conversation. But I just had this belief that like my body can take care of things on its own. I don't need a bunch of stuff from the outside, but I had no foundation for it. So this is pretty much my whole life. And I just thought it was weird. So I get into undergrad, and getting into undergrad, I basically had a job, and I thought I wanted to be the assistant manager at the oil change shop. So that was like my dream. And my dad's like, all right, you got to go to college. So I go to undergrad just to appease him. And I was thinking like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I wanted to be a lawyer, but then I met the law school and the leaders there. And I was like, this is super boring. Not going to do that. So I was like, all right, I'm really good at teaching. I had a bunch of friends who I kind of like quite literally helped. Like, I don't think they would have graduated high school if it weren't for my help of like with writing specifically. So I'm like, maybe I could be a high school English teacher. So I'm in undergrad, start getting my high school like degree to teach secondary English education. And first semester, dude, God put this in, and I was not a believer at the time, but God put this in front of me, this idea of a hidden curriculum. And so not to get, again, too much in the weeds, but I learned about this thing called a hidden curriculum, which basically the research says this is that the socioeconomic status of your parents, so in other words, how much money your parents make, the school you go to, especially like elementary school, high school, is going to prepare you to do the exact same job that your parents did.
Interesting. Okay.
And they talk about this idea of like a glass ceiling. So the idea is that in some schools, if you're lower socioeconomic status like we were, or I was growing up, then it's like you're going to learn to follow directions. There's one right way to do it. Everything else is wrong. Not really a lot of critical thinking. And so I learned about this, and I'm like, that's the only reason I wanted to be an oil assistant manager, is because I didn't see anything greater for my life because nobody taught me how to think. So then this thing in me kind of started to bubble up where I got this passion. I'm like, all right, if that's true, that schools prepare kids for the money that their parents make, then if we're aware of it, then we can break it. And I got super fired up on that. So I start teaching high school English. And as I'm teaching, I'm like all in on this thing of like, it doesn't matter, like these kids who are in special ed classes and need help and have ADHD and anxiety and the trouble kids, if you will. I'm like, they still all have the same potential to be just as successful as those honors kids in the other classes. And long story short, as I start teaching, I'm like, how do we learn? Like, where does learning come from? What does it mean to be a good learner? What does it mean to be successful?
Yeah.
And it all came back to the brain and a set of skills, cognitive skills, soft skills, so grit, willpower, determination, curiosity, good versus bad, right versus wrong, our decision making, our goal setting. And I'm like, dude, anybody can learn those. Like, it's not math, science, English, history.
Exactly.
And so I started teaching to those skills. So kind of to bridge this gap, as I start learning about the brain, I am under chiro care for myself as well. And I keep asking my chiro, I'm like, dude, how am I like, I feel all this passion, and like, I was just awakened to like, there's a whole different world that I didn't even know existed and what's possible for my life. And I'm like, why is that happening? And he's like, dude, because we're affecting your brain. So I start putting these two things together, and I'm like, well, wait a second. If we're affecting the brain in my teaching strategies and we're affecting the brain with chiropractic, I'm like, could we potentially get better results faster if we put those two together? And everybody thought I was crazy. And so I'm like telling teachers this at school. I'm like, what if we had school chiropractor instead of school nurses? And they thought I was completely insane. So much so that I started becoming like the health guy at school. And it got to the point where I just couldn't teach for another year because I'm like, I got to go teach whole families this principle about how the brain works, about how to wake up and access the brain, and what that means and what healing means and what success and potential and all that stuff comes from. In my
Yeah.
opinion, it all comes from what happens up here in the brain. So long story short,
Yeah.
after 6 years of teaching, I get offered a job to go into admin. The next day I quit. I put in my notice. 2 months later, I sold my house in Indiana.
Wow.
2 months after that, my wife and I moved to Georgia. We had just gotten married,
Okay.
moved to Georgia into campus
Okay.
housing so I could get my doctorate. And then 3 years of doctorate program, 3.5 years, and then moved from Georgia to Dana Point, California. And that's where we are now. And that's where I have my practice for the last almost 8 years.
Wow. Okay. There's so much to unpack
I
there, but
know,
dude,
I know, I know.
I love so much the fact that at a very early age, you had this thought that you were like, I
Hmm.
think the body can heal itself.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's just like, once again, this is pre being a believer, but like, I think the Lord planned, I mean, like, there, you had that passion for a reason. And I think there's just so much beauty in it, at such an early age, kind of getting that, walking through the different seasons of life, being an English teacher, all the things, to then doing what you're doing now. There's just so much beauty in that. I love it. So, talk us through a little bit on, okay, you turned in your 2 week notice, got the admin job, turned in the 2 week notice, moved to Georgia, got the degree. And then what was it like moving to California? What was the reason? Did you like start your firm from there? Or did you like go work for somebody else right after that? Or what does the past 8 years look like?
So past 8 years, basically from Georgia, no connections, like
Yeah.
zero connections. All of our connections, all of our family, especially at that time, 8 years ago, they were all still in Indiana. So we knew no one here, except for people that we had met when we vacationed here. Cause
Okay.
we had known for like the 2 years prior that we were going to move here. We just set it as a goal.
Oh, it wasn't a career based thing. It was just like, hey, we love Dana
No,
Point, so we're doing
this
that.
is like, we love this place. This is a small little surf beach town that
Let's go.
nobody really knows about. It's changed a lot in the last 8 years, but
Yeah.
when we moved here, it was very quiet and sleepy. And man, it's one of those things that I feel like even hearing the name Dana Point, I was like, there's something special about that place. So again, this is all still pre-believer,
Yeah.
but I look back on it, man, and I'm like, God, like, just set this up. So we moved, again, no connections. How it worked is I graduated in December of 17, but you got to wait for a licensing process. So to get your license to practice takes usually 6 months, is what they say in
Okay.
California. So I graduated December of 2017. January 30th of 2018, I officially got my license in the mail. So less
Okay.
than 4 weeks. And
Wow.
then we signed the lease on our place January 31st, and then we were open February 19th. And we
Oh
did a build out
my
and all the
gosh.
stuff in the process. So this is just like we went all in, just did it for ourselves, didn't work for anybody else. Just put a lot of time in school just to figure out like kind of the business side and how we would
Yeah.
run the practice and what some of our systems would be. And I was just basically like, all right, we're either going to fail miserably
Yeah.
or it's going to work. Luckily, we had the vision, and the vision came true, I guess you could
Yeah.
say, which is pretty cool.
Okay, Dr. Daniel, I have to go back to those first few days, first few months in January. You just opened the doors of your business. You
Yep.
basically know no one in Dana Point. So,
Mhm.
like, what did you like? How did that first transaction happen? Like, take yourself back to those moments of being like, how am I even going to grow this thing?
Yeah, so backstory, the prior 2 years we had visited here. So
Okay.
the first time would have been in 2015, and we were here for like 2 days, and we went to the CrossFit gym and met the owners, and I was like, "I swear we're moving here. Like, we're moving here, guaranteed, no question, we love this place." And I think a lot of people come and visit this place specifically, and they say that because, like, dude, it's paradise. Like, I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
my house is a less than 5-minute walk, like, to the sand on the beach, so
Yeah, it's awesome.
and it like, it's 80 degrees today,
Yeah.
not a cloud in the
Unbelievable.
sky. So anyway, paradise. And they're like, yeah, okay, everybody says that because they love it here. And the next year we came back and we visited for 2 weeks, trying to pretend like we're locals. So again, the
Okay.
CrossFit gym's like, yeah, like that's cool. You guys say that, but still, like you're just visiting on vacation. And then when we got back, it was like we were already signed up in the CrossFit gym. We were already members of the Chamber of Commerce because we knew we were going to make it happen. And my first transaction was actually with my realtor who
Okay.
helped us get our commercial space.
Okay.
Second would have been the owner of the CrossFit gym who just so happened, and this is not how I practice at all, by the way. But he like blew his back up doing deadlifts and he
Okay.
wanted to see, and then everything else was just from those relationships that we had built for the 2 days that we were here, then the
Oh
2 weeks that we
my
were here,
gosh.
and then those couple weeks that we actually lived here.
That is unbelievable. Okay, I wanna hear a little bit, what part did your wife play? Was she more excited, less excited to make the move to Dana Point? Were y'all fully on the same page? And then was she also helping build the business? What did that look like?
Yeah, man. When you talk, if we go back, I think more people know it now because I tell the story a lot. My wife was a physical therapist.
Okay.
So she had her dream job when I was teaching. She was working with pro athletes, college level athletes, doing like with the best orthopedist in the state, arguably. So like she kind of had her track set and she was
Yeah.
super happy with her job, except for her commute was terrible.
Okay.
So when I told her I wanted to go to Cairo school, it's funny because in her mind, and she'll say this too, she's like, I always knew that I was going to marry a doctor and I was going to live in Orange County. And two of
What?
those, both of those things ended up happening.
Is she from Indiana as well?
Yeah, yeah. She was willing to go on the journey. So here's what it looked like. When she quit physical therapy so we could move to Georgia, she's like, I could get my physical therapy license, but the more we talked about it, she's like, you know what? We're going to take a big risk. She's like, I'm going to go into and just work as an office manager in an office so I can learn the back end of
Cool.
how a practice
That's
runs.
unbelievable.
And so, dude, from like making a normal person's salary as a physical therapist to going into like an office manager salary, it was a huge pay cut. And then I'm not getting
Yeah.
paid at all.
Yeah.
So, dude, we just took it was like a series of calculated risk along the way and sacrifices to do the thing that ultimately I kind of had this vision for was like 7 a.m. people lined up waiting to get into the office to get adjusted. And man, it's just come true. And that again, it's one of those things of like when you talk about the brain, it's like when you can get rid of the fear, and the Bible says, do not fear for a reason. We get into
Yeah.
physiology and all that. Like, keep the vision, get rid of the fear, and like all those things I had a picture of in my head are like coming true or have come true.
Yeah, that is so awesome. Okay, so that kinda walks me right into that next question. So obviously 8 years in, building this thing, how has the business morphed a little bit? And then who is kinda like your ideal client right now of who you serve?
So I kind of have this weird like split practice. So most of my clients right now are entrepreneurs and then their
Okay.
families. So I think maybe because California kind of had like it's expensive to live here. So I think part of it is just there's like a hustle lifestyle where it's like, and it's hard to be in the hustle lifestyle when you're like working for somebody else. So take care of a lot of entrepreneurs. And then there's another section of my practice who are people who have like, I've been to 15, 20, 30 practitioners. I've been all over the world. I can't get answers for my thing. And we're also helping like that group of people too. So it's
Wow,
very
okay.
split, but most of it, what I always tell people, it's more wellness based. So like, if you're coming in to just get because you want your back fixed, I'm like, you can just take pain meds. It'll be way faster. You won't have to come to my office to do it. So it's a very different philosophy. So we're looking at what creates health, not
Yeah.
what creates disease. We're looking at how do we prevent disease so we can have full expression of what God gave us.
Yeah, that is so, so good. So I'm curious, when did you know that entrepreneurs were the kind of the people you were gonna target in that journey? And I guess is the main reason you're targeting that going back to the hustle lifestyle of saying they can number one, they can afford it, number one, they're willing to put in the long work to say like, we're gonna appreciate the holistic approach.
Yeah, I don't know because I never actively in my head was like, that's who I want to see. It just
Okay.
kind of happened.
Yeah.
So all I can say is that in school there's kind of two paths. There's like you see people for musculoskeletal stuff, so like back, neck, hips, whatever, or there's a little bit more of a wellness approach. But that wellness approach a lot of times targets like pregnant moms. This is the standard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Pregnant moms, kids, and babies. And like I wanted that family pediatric pregnant mom practice, but it never like there was something about the messaging that just felt off. And I realized that there's a whole bunch of people here who need more access to that part of their brain that gives them more grit, specifically what would allow somebody to like have a business, but then turn off their business mind so they can like be present with their kids or their
So good.
family.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. When I started seeing it more, I'm like, that dad needs to be in here because he's so not present. And there's all these stressed out moms because they're doing all the work while dad's just making the money and he's the ATM. And I realized like, no, more families need that. They need like a presence from their parents. And that's when I started marketing like, we're not doing back pain, we're doing presence, productivity, profit.
Dude, let's go, man. Okay, this fires me up so much because I know nothing, full candid, know nothing about the chiropractic space. I've actually never been to a chiropractor ever,
Yeah.
which you probably like, you need to coach me up and say you need to go. But I love that so much because I'm following, obviously building a business, same with you, falling in that exact same trap. And I've never correlated those two things together. So like, I guess kind of walk us through those, that maybe that light bulb moment of shifting from pregnant moms or whatever you thought your practice was going to look like to saying like, oh my gosh, this is how this is going to work. And then also walk us through like, what does the typical flow of a typical entrepreneurial client look like? Do they come in weekly, 5 times a week? Like, what are you kind of walking them through from your service standpoint?
Yeah. So I'll go light bulb moment first, and then I'll go to like what it looks like practically in the
Yeah,
service space. So light bulb moment for me was like, okay, I love taking care of pregnant moms. We still take care of pregnant moms, take care of babies. Usually, like I said, it's those pregnant moms who are also like, I'm running a business. Like we just have some cool clients. Like I have a woman right now who her business is she coaches other business is specifically in theory of constraints.
that's awesome.
So like she's an entrepreneur, her husband's an entrepreneur, and then we're taking care of her during her pregnancy. So like there's these really cool like entrepreneurs who are hustling, but it's also like I need my body to be ready to have a baby. So too much of what I saw just focusing on like pediatrics and pregnancy specifically was like people still have this mindset that, well, I only need to do something if there's a problem.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I just never believed that to be true
Yeah.
as far back as I can go. So I'm like, and I'll give you an example. This might be too like morbid, but so my aunt, who I love dearly, so she was healthy and then she started having neurological issues. They go in, they do a scan. She has stage 4 tumor in her brain. And like
Oh,
6 weeks later, she passed away.
oh wow.
So, like, incredibly sad, but everybody's like, "She was so healthy, she was so good," and I'm like, "That was like, it didn't just show up
Yeah,
overnight. That had been growing for years before she ever had a symptom." So if symptoms
yeah,
were the indicator whether we were healthy or sick, then that would not happen. You know what I
that's
mean?
right. Yeah, yeah,
So anyway, with entrepreneurs, so when we talk about the part of the brain that's responsible for presence, it's the frontal cortex. So everything when I was teaching too, all of it is frontal cortex.
yeah.
And what we know is that stress hormones turn off the frontal cortex. And there's a whole, like, you can look at the studies, dude. It's super cool. Is that people who have a weaker cortex are poor leaders. People who have,
Yeah.
like, kids who have a weaker cortex, they've done this on fMRIs, they make less money. They have higher rates of disease. They have higher rates of divorce. They have higher rates
Wow.
of drug and alcohol abuse. So there's, like, again, all these indicators of success that would say weaker frontal cortex equals less success. So as I started like working with people, I realized that like, and it was the same with me too when I was teaching. If you don't have access to it because stress hormones weaken it, which we're
Yeah.
all under stress all the time, then what would happen if you started getting adjusted regularly? And that's when like when my messaging shift from like, let's live 100 years and like a healthy lifestyle to like, hey, let's just be present, more productive, more profitable.
Yeah.
And yes, make more money, but also profit from life experiences. So being
Exactly.
able
Yeah.
to enjoy the time, like one of my mentors, Garrett Gunderson, he always says, he's like, you can't buy back the memories you never had. And I just love that, dude. Because
Yeah.
most of us, like, we just have this tendency to want to go, like, we'll build a business and then we'll put time for
Exactly.
family.
Yeah.
And I just, I don't know, dude. I could just never really fully get behind that
Yeah.
because I saw the wake that it left with family. So anyway, long story short, we start that messaging, start seeing like big entrepreneurs who are like the elite of the elite here for sure. And so practically what it looks like is when someone comes in, it'll start with like hey, I have this thing in my physical body that's bugging me, that's like distracting me mentally.
Yeah.
And then we get into, so what we do is we measure the brain. So we're going to
Okay.
do tests, which I call neural integrity mapping. So we're going to map out where are weaknesses in different parts of the brain through the testing that we do. Based on those weaknesses, that's how we will adjust someone's spine. And that
Wow.
movement of the spine, that stimulus to the spine is what wakes up the brain. And so we can start to, so if you think of the brain like a muscle, we're just getting workouts to specific parts of the brain,
Yeah.
specifically through adjusting. We can do therapies too. A lot of places do therapies, but I don't think that's the most important way to do it. So your brain is just a muscle and we want to strengthen it. And then when we strengthen whichever parts of the cortex are weak, we'll see that correlate with, dude, I have so many case studies of dads who are
Oh, I'm
like,
sure.
I can actually like turn my work brain off and hang out with my kids at night.
Yeah.
One of my favorite case studies, dude, is like I had this guy, we were working with him for 4 weeks, and he's like, I've done $1 million weeks, I've done $1 million months, I've done $1 million years. Like, I've never done $1 million day. It was actually one of his goals on day one with us,
Okay.
and hits $1 million day like 4 weeks in. He's like, I swear to you, the only difference is that I started coming here. So, do I promise that for everybody? No.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
he just had more clarity and more presence in those
Yeah.
moments of his sales thing, and he did $1 million day. It was like it's just cool, you know? So we're mapping out the brain, and then it's really based on the severity of what somebody has going on when we do the testing. So some people come 3 times a week
Okay.
in the beginning. Some people come twice a week. Some people come once a week. And I equate it very much to the way you would think about going to see a personal trainer. Like,
Yeah.
some people are like, well, can I just come like whenever my back hurts or
Yeah.
whatever? And I'm
Exactly.
like, you wouldn't go to a personal trainer and be like, hey, I just need one session just to like
Yeah.
sweat a little
We're
bit of
going to
this
the
off.
beach
And
next week. I need one
yeah,
session.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, nobody does that. Actually, people do that, which is crazy. But it's like, you're not going to get lasting change. I think anything worth doing takes
Yeah.
consistency and reps. But what's cool is the last little bit. So like, I'll have entrepreneurs who we graduate them from twice a week to once a week. And they're like, dude, I just have so much going on that I need to come twice a week. And those are the ones who like really, really get it. So I've had
Yeah, for
people
sure.
come, they're driving an hour a day to see us and
No
come
way.
4 times a week. And he's like, I just function better at this level than when I'm coming twice a week, because they can tell that little subtle
Oh,
nuance
yeah.
of like this being activated versus being shut off by stress hormones.
Okay, doc. I mean, goodness gracious, there is so much power. I feel like you've like really struck a nerve. Obviously, I mean, I don't know if that's the right phrase or not, but what you're doing, I think there's just so much power inside just the concept behind it, even just putting yourself in the shoes to say, like, I am a young dad, trying to build this business. For me to be able to have that clarity when my
Yep.
kids are playing on the floor and not be consumed by the business. I just love that so much. But you mentioned one thing that and once again, this is the name of our podcast, but the profit side of your business.
Yep.
And I think what you said is so perfect. Profit is way more than just making money on the bottom line. It
Amen.
is literally the experiences. It is the margin in your life to have the creativity that the Lord created us to go do. Right.
Yep.
And I love so much. So can you speak a little bit before we dive into business questions? I'd love to see, like, when you say profit at the end of those 3 P's that you got, what do you mean, I guess, in the holistic approach of profit?
Yeah, so, like, obviously, everybody's gonna think of making more money, but, I think that I'm reminded regularly by Holy Spirit in my prayer time. He's like, "If you never made another dollar ever again in your life, if you never, like, adjusted another person and got these life-changing results," like, all this stuff that we try to, like, hang our flesh, like, pride and ego on,
Yeah.
God's like, "I love you, and I'm already proud of you, and you have a wife and a daughter who are the same." So to me, like, that's the profit piece of it, is being able to just fully live in that experience of you're already enough, you're never broken, you're already worthy. And, like, more on a practical level, it's like, I would rather not be up until 11 p.m. working and go to bed, get 8 hours of sleep, and be able to wake up in the morning and not be exhausted so I can sit on the floor and play with my daughter and play Legos if she wants to. And I think that's the profit, because again,
Yeah,
like, you
that's
can't
good.
buy back memories you never had. So like,
Yep.
I'm all about taking care of this system so that I can just be full and present with
Yep.
her. So she never has all the stuff that we had. Well, at least me, when I was a kid, of like dad working overtime all the time, never
Yeah,
got to
yeah.
come to my football games, or, whatever the thing was. And I think that's the profit.
Yeah, it's so good. I love that so much. So there's a book, if you haven't read this, a must read for you particularly. I just finished it. It's called The 5 Types of Wealth. And he
Okay.
talks about, have you heard about this book?
No.
Okay, so you put it on your list, man. I might send it to you because it literally, financial wealth is the 5th one. But basically, I'll just read them off real quick. But the first one is time wealth, which is
Yep.
exactly what you're talking about, like valuing time way more than money. In fact, the
Yep.
best way to describe it is, everybody knows Warren Buffett's one of the most, wealthiest people on the planet, but no one would be willing to trade places with him because he's 94 years old.
Hmm.
Right? Isn't that mind blowing?
Yep.
But we get caught up in this every day of focused on financial, 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 but none of us would be willing to trade with one of the richest people in the world, which is crazy.
Yeah. Oh,
So
so
time
good.
wealth is the first one. Social wealth, which is obviously relationships, family. He calls it mind wealth. So like
Hmm.
literally the emotional side of yourself. Physical wealth, And then the fifth one obviously is financial wealth.
Yep.
And so anyway, a great read. It's just challenged me a ton to reset priorities in my life to say, like, what am I doing? What are the focuses? It kind of reminds me a little bit of going, even doing the eulogy speech for yourself, right? If you've never
Mhm.
done that before, but like literally going and writing what you want to be said at your own funeral and being laid into the ground. I think there's power in that to reset those priorities. And I love that you're literally living this out to help people do that, which is just mind blowing to me. I love it. Okay. So, I want to talk a little bit about your business. What do you? It seems like you got a lot of momentum. Obviously, you know the Lord's done tremendous things through these past 8 years. What's the thing that you wake up kind of focused on, or the bottleneck right now in your business that you're like, this is the wall we got to break through?
Yeah, the biggest bottleneck for me is so, like, there's this balance, um, of alright, so we are way, 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 way higher priced than, like, everybody else in the area. I would argue all over, but there's this mindset and, like, fear of when you boil it all back, right? Like, I could look at, like, "Oh, it's just a pricing thing," but really it just I think it always goes back to what happens up here.
Yeah,
So the bottleneck for us is, like, how do we create enough value or perceive value that it becomes worth it? Because I think, like, a lot of people, they get wrapped into, like, I'll go do cupping and I'll go do stretching, and it costs $200 to do, right? No problem doing that, but then they don't get results and they're frustrated, but they're like,
yeah,
"I don't wanna go here and commit to, $150 a session for something that's, like, literally going to give me lasting change in my life."
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, the bottleneck really is that, like, all right, how do we, like, I think we're doing pricing right, but with the pricing piece of it, how do we just create more value for that with just adding it without just adding in a bunch of fluff, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's good.
So I would say that's the one that I'm working on actively right now. Like, I spent a lot of time working on that this morning. And most of it, dude, honestly, is just like, God, give me your clarity, give me your insight.
Yeah.
And he is very clear with me this morning. He's like, just keep going. It's like, I got you. You're in the right path.
Yeah, that's so good, man. And you've heard this, I'm sure, before, but I just love the concept of whatever that bottleneck is. And you probably did it this morning, is spending the first 90 minutes of your day
Hmm.
just in deep thought about that, of like, how are
Yeah.
we going to solve this problem? I think there's massive power when you actually go and expand and do that. Okay, I'm curious, also in business, obviously with that focus, what are the things over the past 8 years that you've kind of like gone consistently back to track, maybe metrics, key performance indicators, whatever it is, to say like, hey, if I know that these numbers are good, then our business is healthy.
Yeah. I think that so for any chiropractic practice, this could probably apply for like PTs and a massage therapist and acupuncturist too. But any chiropractic practice, my three things are AVI, which is average visit income. Okay.
Yep.
So when someone comes in, what's the average amount of money they spend with you? And I don't like upsell services. So everything is just like you come in, you get what you get.
Love it.
So we do average visit income. We do PVA, which is patient visit average. So how many visits on average someone who starts with you sees you for,
Got it.
which that is probably to me arguably the most healthy indicator of a practice.
Yeah.
And then, dude, the other one that's really, really easy because you can figure out lifetime value and all those things off of those two numbers right there. But the other one is just new clients. Like, how many new people do you have coming through the door? And what
Yeah.
I love, so the chiropractic space right now, dude, is flooded with like 90 new patients in 90 days, 30 new patients in 30 days, 60 new in 60 days. But if you look at those practices, like their PVAs like 2 and 3,
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
charging way low. So I'm just like, dude, give me 5 new and let me keep them for a year and a half.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it saves time. Like you talked about those 5 things of well. So like my whole practice model is built around those 3 KPIs. And I never felt like, oh, we just need more new people coming through the door,
Yeah.
which is a kind of messed up way to think about it, but
No,
it's true.
but when you know the things that are driving your business and the measures to go track and see that, then you can feel confident in what your decision is. So that's what's so beautiful about that. Is I'm curious. Well, number one, when going back in the 8 years, at what point did you realize like these are my three things that I need to start tracking? I'm going to be serious about tracking these things.
Yeah, man, that's a great question. So I think that so many people get wrapped up in the new clients, which is important, especially in the beginning for sure, because you got to get people to come in. But like to me, I think I realized it early on. I think the one that I paid the least attention to was the AVI, or the average visit income. I just naturally, I feel like was good at the PVA piece because I always cared about experience that someone
Yeah.
has. But the AVI is the one, when you really look at it, that's that number that is the differentiator between like, I can't focus on anybody who's in my practice because I got to constantly go chase new people
Yeah, yeah,
versus
yeah.
that, like, let me just make their experience awesome. And then, like, because they have such a good experience, we can charge more and they get
Yeah,
better results and they're more committed and like all the stuff that you know.
yeah,
So it was really like probably the 3rd year in when I really started to hit that AVI number that was like, "Oh, I see something that I feel like most other people are missing."
yeah. That's good. And are you tracking those things weekly, monthly? How often are you looking at those metrics?
Yeah, I just look at it monthly. Like, once
Yeah,
you do it and you're looking at numbers, like I get my stats every day. So I could
yeah,
figure it every day, but realistically, like monthly is more of the way to do it. One of the things that can be like sometimes, especially for raising fees, it's like looking at that PVA to make sure that number's not dropping. And the PVA is not something that's going to change overnight either, right? So you got to look at some of them on a little bit longer time horizon. But for me, every month is what I like. Like I said, I look at our stats every day. But in the beginning, I couldn't do that because it would mess with my head too much, where I
yeah,
didn't have the
yeah, yeah,
mentality to be, because then I would be like, well, I'm not good enough, or I suck, or we're
yeah,
going to fail. And to me, that
yeah,
was a detriment. So it had to be a weekly thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Makes complete sense. Got it. Okay, so as we wrap up a little, I'm very curious for you. Is there something that you wish you would have known as a business owner, whether it's operating with margin or whatever it is, going back in your early years that you wish you could have told yourself 6, 7 years ago?
Systems matter. All of my stuff would have been on the leadership side and probably would just around standards.
Yeah,
So I'll give you an example. So in the past, like I wanted to be the nice guy, right? Like I wanted to be nice. Like I hired people who were friends, and that doesn't always work. Like I think you can be nice, but there has to be a standard that's upheld. So, and I think this goes back to when you're like truly operating from like a kingdom perspective,
yeah,
you can do a lot of this stuff without burning relationships. So one of the standards for me is congruency. So we always do what we say we're going to do. So I just had somebody who's like a close friend of mine, dude, love this guy, still mentoring him up even after he's not with us, but he had a breach of his contract. And I'm like, if I don't let him go, what message does that send to the rest of my team?
that's right.
Cuz
Yeah,
one of our core values is congruency. So before I would have been like, listen, dude, like you got to just get this thing done. And I would have been nice about it, but it sends this message where it kind of like lowers the level of operation for the whole team.
yeah,
Where when the team saw that I actually let him go, and then like everybody stepped up their game. So I couldn't do that in the beginning. Well,
yeah,
because I wanted to be nice. And then
yeah,
I would let it boil up and be frustrated, frustrated, and frustrated. And then I would spill over and burn the relationship.
yeah, yeah,
So it's
yeah.
just this like
Exactly.
authenticity, congruency, just the integrity to have a truthful, honest conversation.
Yeah, that's so good, Dr. Daniel. I think because that's going to speak to so many people, including me, right? Like I always want to be the nice guy in the room, just make everybody happy from as we build this company and go. But
Yep.
it ruins like the culture that you're trying to build when you let things slide and you don't hold people accountable to the standards that you want to live by. And honestly, I think that's just living with integrity, right? It's like living with the way you're supposed to build and the authenticity. I love that so much. Okay, I feel like we could talk for hours. Is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you just want to that's on your heart that you wanted to mention?
Dude, this is like a whole other podcast episode. The only thing I would okay, if I could just remind people, I truly believe this is the sole reason that God put me here on this earth. And I feel like he would be slightly disappointed with me if I didn't say it, is that it does not matter. Like, dude, we could have conversations about genetic conditions and stuff that I see in my practice. Every single one of us has the exact same potential to be successful, and God gave it to all of us. So, if you're somebody out there who's like feeling broken or feeling like you're not enough or feeling like you have all these quote unquote issues, I can promise you that they are normal and you are not broken. You are made perfectly. Psalm 91, you're fearfully and wonderfully made.
Let's
And
go.
like you have the same potential as like, some of our mentors who we work with. It's like, dude, we have the same potential as them. It's this that blocks it.
Yeah, so
That's what I
good.
would share.
Can you expound one quick nugget on this? Because I have some thoughts behind it too. Can you just define the word success? Because you mentioned that we all have the potential to be successful. Can you define your version of success?
Yeah, I think success at this moment in my life, how I would describe it is doing all out, all in what God put you here to do.
Let's go. I'm right in line with it, baby. Let's go. Your unique ability.
your
I love it.
unique ability. And it's not like, dude, for me, it's not being a chiropractor, right? So like
Yeah.
outside, this is the cool part when you talk about it's identity is what it is.
Yeah.
But outside of just real quick, I could show people that they had the potential to be successful teaching. I could do it as a chiro. I could do it on this podcast. Basically
Yeah.
anywhere I go, even if I was homeless, I could still do it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And I think if you just lay it all down with the Lord, like let him guide you, let him show you what he called you here to do, like your life will just be beautiful.
So good. So well
Yeah.
said, Dr. Daniel. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, man. This has been a pleasure to me, man. You got me fired up today. I'm curious if anybody wants to know more about you, your practice, where's the best place to find you?
Best place to find me, Instagram at Dr. Daniel Kimbley. If you want to check out my practice, you can check out at Nexus Family Chiropractic. Those are the two best places, but at Dr. Daniel Kimbley, just message me, say what's up, and I can point you in the right direction for everything else.
Let's go, man. I love it. We will put that in the show notes so everybody can find you. Dr. Daniel, thank you so much for spending the time today, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me here, man. So fun. Such an honor.